thought about it. So thank you to Patrick for encouraging me to do so. I found the process to be quite rewarding. I also want to thank Dre and Will for helping me with the technical parts of this presentation. That was just really tremendous. So thank you very much. This song. This is a song entitled Pie. It's by the ostensible comedic duo Hard and Firm.
When ink and pen in hands of men inscribe your form by P2P, they draw an altar on which God has slaughtered all stability. No eyes can go seeking all the places you anoint.
Sing, you know it.
To see the point. To your geometric progeny that fit inside you, oh so tight with joy.
Okay, this is the audience participation part. 3.1419265 And that's enough. I could go on. Major transitions, the deconstruction of 07. So when I was 20 in 2007, my life radically changed. It actually felt like Apple Watch is still talking to me. It felt like my life was basically systematically deconstructed, and I'm not sure if it was me who did it or what. But basically, at the start of the year, I was with my high school sweetheart. We'd been together for 7 years at that point. I majored in physics and dabbled in psychology for whatever reason. And I worked for this mega church that used to pay me under the table and messed up my taxes for about 10 years. By the end of that year, I broke up with my longtime girlfriend. I lost that job because they actually got in trouble with governments. Mega churches are strange, man. And I changed majors to be an English major and decided I was going to be a PhD in English. And I could, at will, by the end of the year, recount about 100 digits of pi at will. So, some wins, some losses. I like this idea, by the way, of deconstruction. So this is an idea, so basically all this centered on, you need to stop. So all this stemmed from a single source, which is that this was the year that typically you would call it losing your faith. I don't like that term because it makes it seem like faith is something that you just ignored for a while and then you lost track of it. I like this idea of deconstruction, that you kind of deconstruct your faith, or your faith is deconstructed. So this was not a just difference in a status update. This was a fundamental, nobody's watching me all the time, sort of change. And while I did that obsessively, I kept memorizing digits of pi. It was my #1 project at the time. Now you might have some questions at this point. This is a good question. Throughout high school, as many of you know, I was a theater kid. I identify currently as a theater kid. It was a Christian theater. It was called Christian Arts and Theater, CAT. And I was a cat. And I worked, as I said, I gave all 3 services to the all 3 children's services on Sunday. One at 6, one at 8, and one at 5. Only it was a weird mega church. It was like the Nickelodeon of children's church groups. Literally in the sense that they would slime us. And I was made to protect the secret recipe of that slime for many years. It's pudding with food color. So this was kind of the journey that I took. And if you asked me at the time, why am I memorizing pi? What's happening? Who are you? Any of those questions, I think I would have failed to answer it. This is corona. So corona is mainly defined, first of all, by the fact that it's at least 2 hours from anything of worth, and second, by Grand Avenue, which is... So this happened in 1914 to 1917. They would have an annual race. This is what the birds see when they look at corona. I was really delighted with this sort of historical detail, including this. So yeah, they created the Corona Road Race, and it had exactly 3 annual races. This is the first one in 1913. Things I like about this, I mean, one, that the hem of her dress is the road. There's little tiny cars going around. I like that she's holding world's records in her hand, and that says $15,000 in prizes, so it was a pretty big deal. It ran for, like I said, 3 times. The reason it stopped is in the 3rd instance, there was a horrific crash that killed about 8 people, including 2 of the world's leaders in driving. But I promised Juliet that I would have no bummers in this presentation, so let's move on. To just show like how central this is to our identity, and Corona people are very, self-identified folks. I love to cherish our past to plan our future. It's kind of the theme. And we are the Circle City. Notice that even our letters are fast. So this is just to give you a little bit more of a sense of this. The part here I like is that it's the grand opening of the 3-mile perfect circle. And I also like that it shows the world eclipsed. This is what it looked like this is the first day of the first race. This is my favorite photo from this time. You can really see a sense of the speed here. Like it's like there's actual like motion blur, and also like what a grand and silly thing to do. Like what a huge idea, and what the execution had something to be left to the imagination. This is, by the way, I did all of my musicals from that civic center. That doesn't have much purpose aside from that. So why was it a circle? Why did I start memorizing pi? Well, it was actually, no joke, that song that I played you a snippet of was the reason that I started deconstructing my religion. And it was specifically these lyrics. So, when ink and pen in hands of men inscribe your form by pedal P, of course, because pi has 2 legs or 2 feet, they draw an altar, looks like an altar, on which God has slaughtered all stability. No eyes could ever soak in all the places you anoint. Literally, you can't see all of the digits at once. And yet, to see you all at once, you only need the point, so the period is a circle itself. And the second stanza is sort of where I'm heading with this. So that's Corona. I kind of felt like my world was just unraveling before me, and let me just take a second to just give you my argument as to why. Make of it what you will. I was like 20, so I'm not going to be offended if you're like, that's dumb. I was deeply troubled by the fact that literally the definition of pi is the relationship of a circle's circumference to a line. Why was I so perturbed by that? Well, because circles are literally inscribed upon our flesh in the form of irises and pupils. It's no accident. It's a literal matter of physical laws that planets need to be spheres. And the line, who can not see a line anywhere. It's the horizon. It's everything. So my problem was that why is the relationship between these 2 things that are so organic, so innate, so simple, incomprehensible? Like the number just doesn't end. And by the way, it has like whatever number of digits it has, we still don't know if it's going to end. It could end tomorrow. We don't know. I was deeply troubled by this. Pi, as it is called, is both a constant, which means it's always the same whenever you look at it. It's the same digits. And it's what's called an irrational number, and I really find it to be irrational. And I had a problem with that, and so I started to memorize pi. Here's a few things that kind of I started digging into. I mean, some of this stuff could be like verging on like conspiracy theory territory, but again, I became really interested in the golden ratio and like the relationship of circles and lines with the human form. This came from my dissertation, actually, about Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr., who invented not the first prosthetic leg, but the first prosthetic leg that worked like a leg. It had a hinge, and it was also made to look like a leg, so it would look natural in a way. So he updated the Vesuvian Man to this. This is what he calls the human wheel. What's fun about it is it's prosthetics on prosthetics. I mean, how fascinating. And then also, it's a literal thing. So I have this highlighted. This is a diagram for how the human mechanism of walking actually works. Well, I would like to just kind of show you for a second, just to get a sense of like how I felt about these things. This video is a pretty good representation, and we're not going to listen to the music. This is the Mandelbrot set. Let me pause this. So this is a function of just a very specific mathematical formula. So even though it looks highly organic, all this is just plots on like a graph. So like you have a y-axis and a z-axis. If you put this formula in, it diverges radically from point to point, and yet it keeps repeating the same forms in a fractal. Some of these have names that are kind of nifty. Let's see if I can grab some while they're going around. That's a cardioid, because it looks like a two-valved heart. They call these the valleys, and one of them is called like the Valley of Desolation or something. So this was kind of like just the sense of awe and wrongness and wonder and what the hell is going on was sort of like what drew me in. So that will be the end of the sort of, I guess, stoner portion. I want to talk very pragmatically. So pi is a constant. Now, so this issue has not been treated lightly by humanity either. So this is a chart of how many digits of pi were known to man over time. Things to note is that this line right here represents the year 1 in the Common Era. So we've been fascinated with pi. Of course, you need it for construction and all sorts of things. You need to have some sort of a rough estimate. I also just love the idea that it was so simple for so long, and then recently has become so exponentially more complicated. And there literally are just like computers that are just calculating pi over and over, running the numbers. So I was just deeply disturbed by this kind of irrational center in the circle of my life. I love this one. So this is just kind of to show you a relationship between a circumference and the circle itself. Look how unsatisfying that is. Why is it on 3? Just be 3. Once again, you're going to be so mad. Come on. It's dumb. So now, very quickly, I will tell you how to memorize pi. Anybody can do this, by the way, seriously. It's just a practice that you might have heard of called the memory palace. I didn't know any of this at the time. I kind of just did my own thing. This is just a cool image I created with being an image creator. There's nothing more to say about it. I'm of two minds at this part. It's like the curve, you know. It's provocative. First step, get yourself a composition book. This is the composition book that I use. It is physical. I forgot to bring it here today, but it's at home. And this is what I did. So this is also the very paper that I used in 2007, preserved for posterity. So what I would do is I would wake up and I would write down as many digits of pi as I knew at that time. So you can see at the start here, I'm up to like Oh yeah, 2653 week stuff. So like I have like 8 digits memorized, and so this is every day. Each time I write it is a different day. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, I just repeated that over and over and tried to nail that down. Well, I would create a painting from those chunks. So I have synesthesia. I think everybody kind of has synesthesia. It's like the cross association between one sense and another. So I have it with numbers. So for instance, red, that was a demonstration. 5 to me is the color red. It's the name Jason. It's strong, it's forceful. If it was a dinosaur, it'd be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. 4 is blue, it's square, it's stable, it's my mom. And if it were a dinosaur, a lot of them have dinosaurs. It would be, and you wouldn't guess this from the name. 4? What? Triceratops.
Yeah.
Defined by the fact that it has 3 horns. You can say what magic was happening inside my brain. So I would just kind of study these things. What I really like to show some of the detail here. So this is me memorizing pi. And this is me writing my master's thesis about, not my master's thesis, my senior thesis in undergrad about William Bradford and the conquista of Mexico. I was reading those in conversation, and here's actually like books that I was checking out about Wilfred Bradford. And it was all on the back of this. Dre might recognize this. This is a tab sheet. So this was from my guitar lessons at the time. This was like the exercise. This is 6415. It's perfect. It's exactly this. I have the prompt, including the typos on the right. So I wrote 3-dimensional shapes that combine curves and straight lines figure in the foreground. Each, and I meant to say matte colored, but instead said matter colored, maybe telling, I don't know. In navy blue, brick red, and subway yellow, the shapes are inorganic, abstract, and complete, if not cohesive. The shapes, like the statues, sit, and it should be sit with a white undefined space. So I wrote those texts, but I shout out to my boy, Copilot, for the art. This is pretty cool. I mean, this is, can you even imagine? Like, that's 9528. I mean, I couldn't have, it's exactly what it is. It's very red. 9 is very, like, 9 isn't always red, but if it's with 5, it gets pretty red. 2, of course, you don't know. 2, you never know what 2. 8 is like the most stable. It's the color brown. It's the month August, which is the 8th month. So no history there. And it's like, if I really care about you, I think you're an 8. Also, by the way, this is my best friend Andrew. This is the one I was so pleased with. This is the best one. This is 8327. This is my favorite 4 digits of pi by far. This was at the time the person that I was dating. This was Sarah's number. And it's very brown. It's sort of abstract. It's got like these lines that could be cables or could be strings. And I find it just very calming. I find it to be like very relaxing. And for many years, I would put myself to sleep by reciting pi. This time, about towards the end of it, when I really knew my stuff, I spontaneously decided one evening. I think it was in the winter. The asphalt was like glistening with like just past rain, and it was kind of cold and sort of foggy. Kind of looked like this picture here, only nighttime, so more like this. And I kept going. I started here. I went all the way around this part, and then I went this way. I thought that was clever. I was like, nobody expects it to go that way. You'd think I'd go that way, but I went this way. And then right here, I'm doing my thing, and I smell just the most saturated pot smoke I've ever smelled in my life. And that, I mean, that's not saying much. I was very straight edge, as you might imagine, at this time. And I can see there's like some people who are sort of like hanging out behind this like rock. And they're like, hey! And I was like, fuck. Like, no! Don't see me doing this. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's hard to explain. And they were like, come here. And so I went up and, okay, when I tell you that I go, so they're behind a rock, so when I peer behind, I see the full group. And the third member of this group is my current graduate assistant instructor of English. And we both are, like, neither of us are at all thrilled by this new knowledge. And so they were like, what were you doing? I was like, writing the digits of pi. And they're like, why? I was like, it's a circle. And weirdly, they're like, that's cool. And I was like, is it? And they were like, yeah, man, that's kind of special. So I never talked about that directly with my instructor, but about 2 weeks later, she asked me to come to office hours, special office hours, and we had a meeting out in the park. And she told me, like, she's like, not everybody has it, but you got it, and I think you should go get a PhD in English. I think you could do it. And that's why I did it. It's Megan, she was responsible for that. So all of which is to say, so I came up with all this, and I'm like, what is the moral of the story? It's a strange tale. I'm like not a very sympathetic character in it, in my mind. And if I could come up with something, it would be this. So this is a passage from The House of the Seven Gables, my favorite Nathaniel Hawthorne book, which is to say my favorite book of all time. And I discovered this in graduate school. And this comes at a time when Clifford, who's our kind of main character, who has been like under house arrest, and now he's like 57. He's never seen the world, and he finally gets outside, and he just like his feet take him, and before he knows it, he's on a train, and, like the new technology of the train at the time, and he's like sitting on the train, and he's like looking around, and he's like looking at the how the landscape just keeps moving past it. And he's like looking at houses, and it's like a house and it's a dash. And so he's thinking about like, what if we like houses weren't permanent? Like, what if we all just lived in like huts and they like just lasted the average human lifespan, and then we'd have a whole new society from that. And he gets very excited about this, and he grabs a gentleman beside him, and he ends up getting kicked out of the train. But what he says is this. So he says, out of nowhere, by the way, you are aware, my dear sir, you must have observed it in your own experience, that all human progress is in a circle, or, to use a more accurate and beautiful figure, in an ascending spiral curve. While we fancy ourselves going straight forward and attaining at every step an entirely new position of affairs, we do actually return to something long ago tried and abandoned, but which we now find etherealized, refined, and perfected to its ideal. He means, Hawthorne thinks that's a good thing. I agree with him, but I don't think it's a good thing. And then this is my favorite part, and he thinks this is a bad thing, and I think it's kind of a good thing. The past is but a coarse and sensual prophecy of the present and the future. So that's the lesson that I learned. And now I think we all are prepared to join me in song. Just kidding. Thank you.